There is a song that is sang, I don't know who sings it, but it's called Precious Memories. This evokes painful memories. It's not a good feel. Not something that we really cherish. Painful memories. Hope they'll never be relived. And that's a hope. But I still see in this country forces that are trying to take us back to a time that never should have been. So when I was coming up, my grandmother and the older people in Snow Hill, Alabama, used to say, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." I beg to differ with that. Words, I think, not only hurt, but they kill. Just in recent days in this country, we have seen the aftermath of words. In the killing of 11 people, in the mailing of pipe bombs, and the people who are using stand your ground to kill people who don't look like them. Words are hurtful. And the people who utter those words are just as guilty as the perpetrators who carry out the acts. I can't overemphasize how painful it is to see what's going on around us and what's emanating from the highest office in the land. Well, you know, I was born and reared about 200 miles from here, or maybe more, down in a place called Snow Hill, Alabama. Migrated to Pensacola, Florida, and got involved in the movement. One of the things that I remember post or pre-1968 is when we came up here, when Dr. King was here, to speak at 16th Street Baptist Church. And of course, this was after the bombing and all that. I can remember, because during that time, there was a lot of things going on down in the state of Mississippi, where 3 young men who had gone down to register blacks to vote, Swerner, Goodman, and Cheney, had been killed, and they were trying to find their bodies, and their bodies were unearthed one day, as well, it was shown on television. We were all sitting in the motel, in the lobby rather, of the Gadsden Motel, which is the only place that Negroes could lodge. And Dr. Abernathy, Dr. King, Bernard Lee, who was one of Dr. King's lieutenants, and several others were in the lobby watching when those bodies were unearthed. And that was, I guess everybody breathed a sigh of relief, but it was painful because they didn't know where those young men were. We were discussing the importance, I guess, of school choice and of the clergy and elected officials and parents. And of course, parents do, in most instances, support school choice because they want to be able to send their children to a place that they have chosen, and rather than have them relegated to by zip codes and to some school that's probably not up to par as it relates to schooling. But I think the important message is, more importantly, we need to address people who are in the clergy, because clergy people have a captive audience every Sunday morning. They've got an opportunity to speak to the parents, and of course they have political figures in their churches, my message to the clergy is that use your bully pulpit, if that's what you want to call it. Use it by telling people that you're preaching to every Sunday morning and on Wednesday nights or whatever night you go to church, that we are striving in this movement, freedom for choice, school choice, we're striving for equality. We're striving to make sure that we have equal access to an education just like anybody else does. And we sometimes can get that in a private or charter or step up for students school. There are a lot of state legislators that I know and political figures that I know who bash school choice and yet send their children to private school. That looks to be hypocritical to me. I mean, if school choice is that bad, why send your child there? Sure. And if public schools are that great that you think that they should override any kind of school choice, then send your child there. But to fight school choice and yet send your child there is quite hypocritical. And I want to add this, all public schools, and we've never said that, all public schools are not bad. All private and charter schools and step up for student schools are not necessarily good, but it should be left up to the parent as to where they send their children to school and not left up to some other entity, because that's freedom of choice. When I was coming up, we had to walk to school. My grandmother, who was a country school teacher, we walked, and I know it sounds strange, 13 miles a day one way to go to school. And when we got there, we had to go out and cut wood to build a fire in a potbelly stove because we were going to school in a church building. About the time the building got warm, it was time to go back home again. And we were afraid to leave the fire burning at night because it might set the building afire. So there are so many advantages for parents to be able to send their children. They can check schools out and see if this is the right fit, because one size doesn't fit all. So that's all we're asking for. We're not asking anybody to do us any favors. We've had preferential treatments all of our lives. We had to sit behind them on the bus because we had to watch them. So, you know, we don't want preferential treatment. We just want to be treated equally.
And education is that path.
Education is that path toward equality, because that's something nobody can take from you. And as a people, we have got to never let Dr. King's dreams be skimmed away by a fish sandwich and a bottle of beer. I think too often we allow people to buy us, and I'm not for sale. And I'm not owned by anybody but him, and of course my wife. But other than that, I ain't owned by nobody. And we're not bashing anybody else. We're not taking anybody else's money, which is a myth. We're not doing that. The scare tactics that the opponents use with us is that we are siphoning off money from the public schools. And they throw it out there just like red meat, and a lot of people grab it without even researching to find out what the truth is. Some of us would rather be lulled asleep by some other man's lie than to be shook and woke up by the truth.
Say that once again.
Well, no, I'm just saying that some people would rather be lulled asleep by somebody's lie than to be shook and woke up by the truth. The truth, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you mad. I mean, set you free, excuse me. But kids are gonna be hurt all over this state. And I think it would behoove all of us who are interested in a quality education for our children to speak up and speak out now. Not be silent in any way.